Good afternoon. Welcome to How to Build a Digital and a Mobile-First Quick-Serve Restaurant Experience, a webinar hosted by QSR Web and Digital Signage Today. My name is Bradley Cooper. I'm the editor of Digital Signage Today, and I'll be moderating today's webinar. The global QSR market will reach $691 billion in the next 5 years. In order to meet the needs of new customers, restaurants need to invest in technology such as mobile-first payment integration, digital drive-thrus, point-of-sale systems, and connected experiences. Today's webinar will cover how to upgrade technology systems to create a connected restaurant, handle digital drive-thrus, and engage customers with relevant data-driven technology. And I'd like to take a second to introduce our panelists. We have Joseph Lanners. He is the Director of Digital Transformation, Retail and QSR at Samsung SDS. Also joining us is Anand Krishan, Vice President of Analytics and Big Data at Harman, Sachin Rao, Sales Director at Harman, and Jason Kerrigan, who is the Head of Digital Marketing at Checkers and Rallies. With that, I'll pass it off to Joseph to get us started. Joseph?
Thank you again, Bradley. I appreciate it. What a warm welcome. It's a real pleasure to be here with a phenomenal group of panelists. As you mentioned, that the QSR global market will grow to $691 billion. I mean, just 2 short years ago, the market was only $539 billion, which is still a very large marketplace. But the winners in the market have been growing their check sizes fairly significantly. And going from 2019 to 2022, we'll exceed almost $690 billion in a global market. And the U.S. is that market on a year-over-year growth. We're seeing with the hectic lifestyle and dual incomes and very busy families that are out there in the marketplace, both the traditional quick service restaurant industry and the fast casual dining industry, which is a natural extension to the QSR industry, they're growing quite quickly. And the types of food types that are driving this growth and the larger check sizes that are driving this growth are expected to continue. So with that, I want to share with you just a few of the key trends that have been going on in the marketplace. Those market drivers and opportunities that QSR leaders are taking advantage of are both related to three key areas. The empowered customer, and these are tech-savvy customers, those who are really on their apps, they're ordering ahead, they're using Uber, they're using Lyft. They're really trying to take advantage of every moment that they have in their daily lives. And they're using every one of those moments to essentially order the food that they want, both casual dining as well as quick service restaurant dining. They're using a lot more order ahead technologies, and you're seeing that growth very significantly, not only in millennials, but even those who are in Gen X or Gen Y who have started to adopt those technologies as well. And they're traveling less using their own cars, which you might see some impact in the drive-through, and you're seeing a lot more order pickups or order deliveries. And then also in 2018, after sort of a weak 2017 casual growth, we were starting to see more higher ticket sales and in-store services. So the QSRs that are winning, growing faster than the industry average of about 4.2%, that's actually being driven by more in-store services or a rise in mobile orders. And then, lastly, the third key industry challenge and the opportunity for the industry leaders is to go ahead and take care of the complexity of the digital touch points. You're seeing a lot more digital kiosks within the stores. Roles of the employees are changing significantly. You're getting a lot more self-service. Not just from the mobile order, but now you're having, some of the QSRs get a digital touch screen to be able to place an order for those who didn't order ahead on their phone. And they're also using lots of digital sensors, AI sensors, and so forth to leverage big data analytics and many of the opportunities to essentially drive more operational efficiency. And this is a good point to basically hand this off to Anand. Anand's going to go over some of the QSR innovations that are going on in the market. Anand?
Yeah, so I feel the two areas of innovation that QSRs are focusing on is one is around elevating customer experience, and secondly is around redefining customer convenience. And if you look at today, there are increasing number of channels that the customers have at the fingertips in terms of door delivery platforms like DoorDash, Uber Eats, and so on, to mobile apps, to websites. And when it comes to in QSRs, you have the convenience of a drive-in, drive-through, and a pickup. And if you draw an intersection of all of these, you will see that the innovation needs to be focused around three broad areas within that. One is knowing the customer. Secondly, how do we increase the order size through offers? And fast service with minimal reorder and reduced wastage. And towards the same, we are seeing interesting implementations across different brands. It includes number plate recognition, voice signatures to recognize the customers in a drive-through. And from a mobile app perspective, features such as loyalty apps, voice integration with Alexas of the world, pushing offers based on geo-triangulation, and also more importantly to understand the customer behavior within a store, such as which days of the week is where you have maximum amount of walk-ins, the hour of the day where you see a maximum amount of traffic. Based on all of this, you can create intelligent menu boards and displays that can provide customized solutions. While we also see a number of implementations on self-ordering kiosk, it's no longer a talk of the town, but innovation is happening more on the payment side of the technologies, like contactless payments, facial recognition, and so on. And all of this needs to be powered with the data that gets captured, and more importantly, provide analysis and insights to the restaurant manager to take decisions on offers and at his fingertips. So that's broadly the section or the areas where we feel, through various discussions and implementations across different brands of QSRs, the innovation areas that everyone is focusing on. So back to Brad.
Yes, thank you. So we're going to be transitioning into a few key questions about this area. And I would also like to remind our audience that if you have any questions, please feel free to submit them anytime during the webinar. We will be answering them during a live Q&A immediately following. So one of our first key questions is, how are quick service restaurants really implementing this technology to improve this user experience? Jason, can you give us any information about this?
Thanks, Bradley. Yeah, starting, Anand covered some good information, and a couple of points that I want to highlight is some of the objectives that we're trying to achieve are enhancing the customer experience and creating convenience with technology. But where a brand starts with this question is number one, who are the users that we're trying to design an experience for? And so I think as brands start to tackle this question, one of the starting points that they've got to get really clear on is who are the customers that they're trying to serve, and then you can start designing for what does convenience and enhanced customer experience mean for those customers that you've already defined. And then I think the second most important question is, how can we learn more about those target audiences over time so that we can continuously understand what does an enhanced customer experience and enhanced convenience mean for those target customers. It all starts with knowing who your target customers are and learning about them in near real time and understanding how their tastes and preferences change over time. If you know who your customers are and you're constantly learning about those customers and have fast feedback mechanisms, then that solves for the technology that you need in order to deliver on those things. So, and then, I always talk about with my technology partners, the great partnerships and win-win scenarios build a great technology platform for retailers. Retailers have thin margins, comparatively speaking, and business moves fast, and consumers' preferences change very quickly, and so you need great partners that will help you navigate those rapidly changing waters in order to have a relevant experience for customers.
All right, thank you, Jason. So we would like to know, how can quick serve restaurants build this mobile first guest experience?
Yeah. So again, starting with the customer in mind, we talk about mobile first because that's a place where a lot of customers are using their mobile device as a remote control for life, and so that's how this mobile first term has become popular. But again, it's important for a brand to frame this question in terms of who are my customers and what do they need. The answer for most retail brands at this point is, they need an easy way to navigate the brand through a mobile device. And more customers are moving towards that mobile device, but you can't ignore for most brands, it's still a very large majority that are accessing the brand through traditional channels. Like for a typical QSR, most QSRs have a lot of people that drive in, look at the menu that's printed on a paper menu board, and they pay in cash. And so those folks do not need a mobile first experience. So another way to think about it is how do quick service restaurants migrate to this mobile first experience for guests? Because to use Wayne Gretzky's quote, you want to skate to where the puck is going to be. We all know mobile is going to be the majority of the channel, and that tide is shifting quickly. So how do we take care of all of our customers today? And these technology initiatives have a long lead time and often involve several cycles to get it right. So how do we build for the future now, and how do we migrate all of our guests? So again, it starts with understanding who your guests are and how they use mobile today, what percentage of your guests use mobile today, what features matter for them. I think mobile is a big convenience lever, and you only have so much real estate. You've got to check the box on a great customer experience, but there's limited real estate and a limited amount of interaction you can have with your phone, and so it really is a way for customers to have convenience. And so a really tangible example of that is being able to reorder with very few button pushes. So that would be, I think it all centers around who your guests are and what does convenience mean for them, and then how can you execute that on a mobile phone or other technologies to create the desired outcomes.
Thank you, Jason. So one of our next questions is, what are some major challenges facing the QSR industry? Jason and Anand, can you give us some perspective on this?
Sure, I'll kick it off. In the QSR industry, in any retail industry, brands are trying to get to know their guests better and serve them in more meaningful ways. In order to get to know guests better, you have to track their behavior, understand their behavior. Traditional channels are starting to show their age. The old focus groups and self-reported customer feedback, those are channels that have worked for a long time, but quite honestly, competition and the demands of the consumer have moved past some of those traditional channels of getting customer feedback and learning about customers through those ways. And so we need to come up with new ways to know our customers and have relationships with them. And digital channels are a great way to do that. That being said, there's still a large number of customers that come in pull up to a paper menu, pay with cash, and they're not. We can't get to know them better very easily. We have to use those more traditional channels to get to know them in order to serve them better. And again, the outcome is we want to know our customers and serve them better. There's not a, we certainly want to increase check. We certainly want to increase visits. There's tactics we can do through digital channels to encourage that behavior. But if we don't care about the guest first, then we will never get the check or the visits. And so it all centers around getting to know the guest. And so for a brand like Checkers and Rally's, there's a lot of folks that come in and pay cash, and we can't track them as easily as we can track people through digital channels. And so making those digital channels as inviting as possible and as easy to onboard new customers as possible is not an easy thing to do, and it certainly is a challenge. And then just general consumer trends. There's just a limited number of people that are using everyday retail for through their mobile devices, and that channel is growing, but it's still a minority of the visits. And so I would say the key challenge is we need to have modern practices to get to know our guests. Compare QSR with like a hotel chain where they get full information on their guests. Just the fidelity of information that a QSR gets is not as high fidelity as some of the other retail or hospitality channels. And so we need to, again, leverage the right partnerships, leverage the right technologies and customer experiences in order to know our guests and serve their needs better. Anand, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, Jason, you kind of very nicely articulated the importance of fidelity in terms of data, especially when you have cash-paying customers. I also want to highlight the other side of the business, wherein if you look at from a QSR perspective, and if you analyze P&L, some of the cost line items are also making a big dent in terms of the headwinds. So you have wage inflation and you have a labor attrition and shortage that is becoming a bit of a challenge today. And if you look at, many of the big QSRs are focused around price discounting despite commodity inflation. So, historically we have seen that SRS sales, which is the same restaurant sales, generally lag cost inflation by 2 quarters. So there is a lot of work that a QSR needs to do to optimize the cost and the spend as much as it's trying to understand the customer better. And one of the big line items where we see an area of improvement that everyone needs to focus is primarily around inaccurate orders in the drive-thru. It beams anywhere between 8 to 10%. So any way to reduce that inaccuracy of orders or repeat orders will help in improving the bottom line in a large way. So those are some of the other challenges over and above what Jason, you alluded to.
All right. Thank you, Jason and Anand. So we also need to consider when deciding an on-off-premise and delivery strategy, what should quick service restaurants consider? Jason and Joseph, do you mind giving some perspective on this?
Sure, I'll kick it off. There's a lot of conversation going on with this right now. A lot of folks are using off-premise and delivery service providers to get fast food, and you can listen to the quarterly reports from the publicly traded companies to understand some general customer behavior around this with some of the big brands. I think number one, what you've got to always start with is your customers and who you're serving, and that is going to ultimately design your off-premise strategy. Second, it's very important to pick the right technology partners that are going to be able to have good uptime with your customer experience, and when there's an issue, the resolving time to resolution on those issues is also very important. And so there's a number of partners that QSRs have to choose from in order to create that technology stack, and selection of those vendors and partners. They have a long-term impact, for better or for worse. It's hard to unwind that technology stack, and so picking the right partner is going to be very critical, and it's a combination of partners that help you get there. And then there's the economics of it. You know, everybody is aware, including consumers, that delivery carries a cost with it, and while consumers are aware of the fees associated with delivery, brands still have to deliver food at a reasonable cost, and we all have to take home a reasonable profit, because these technology initiatives are long-term initiatives that require profit in order to continue to invest in those platforms and build customer experiences that are going to serve customers for the long term. And so there's a lot of things to hang in the balance. There's the capital-intensive technology investment, picking the right partners so that investment produces the right yield, and then most importantly, satisfying customers' needs and constantly learning about their off-premise needs in a way that allows you to stay current and deliver the service that guests expect and exceed expectations there. To tie on to Anand's point before, there's orders that are missing items, there's mistakes in the process, and you can't lose track of those operational metrics when you're executing these types of services. So keeping an eye on the basics. You gotta have the table stakes there and deliver hot, fresh food that's accurate and in a timely manner. And then you have to do it on a channel that's a new channel both for consumers and QSRs, and do it in a way that's relevant to the consumer, and then constantly be learning about the consumer's behavior on that channel, so you can be in lockstep with the consumer in terms of what their expectations are, and always stay current. Joseph, what else would you add to that?
Well, I think you did a great job, Jason, covering a few things. I mean, you absolutely have to know your customers. You have to understand your costs, choose the right partner. Technology is key in some of the off-premise strategies. I think I would add a couple of things. I'll talk a little bit about the market itself and how much it's growing. But I would also add, and I think you probably alluded to this, continuing to test those off-premise strategies, and then listen to the customer feedback throughout that process. And I think it's intrinsic into what you were alluding to. I'll say this. About 38% of restaurant sales now are done through off-premise strategies. So if you're not getting 38% of your dollars from an off-premise strategy as a QSR, you probably need to start looking at a strategy to capture some of the expected growth that's going to continue to accelerate over the next couple of years. We're seeing right now about a 6% growth in an off-premise strategy. Now that could include different types of drive-throughs, delivery methods, some catering opportunities, food trucks, potentially order or kiosks that are used to order as part of an off-premise strategy as well. And then Anand alluded to some of the other things that are important, POS integration with voice ordering capabilities, these technologies that are required to look at the operations side, the packaging, the temperature control, food quality, off-premise strategies that incorporate potentially some of these other sensors to maintain quality or improve quality, or monitor quality, or monitor the uptick of off-premise consumption. That's also going to be an important piece. So yes, select your technology partner. Your not just a technology partner, a consulting partner who can help you develop the right strategy and capture this immense growth that's been going on. And the accelerating growth that we're going to see. I think I just want to re-echo that those are important components. So with that, I'll hand it back over to you. Take us to the next slide, Brad.
Thank you, Jason and Joseph. So there are many factors to consider with new technology. So Jason and Anand, what factors should quick-serve restaurant franchisee managers keep in mind when considering new technology? If you don't mind starting us off, Jason.
Sure. This is a very important question that has massive impact on a brand's ability to be successful. And selecting a technology partner is something that some brands, most brands that I'm familiar with, the Samsung guys can probably speak a little bit more broadly in terms of their experience with working with lots and lots of brands. But technology selection is not inherent in the few brands that I have exposure to. It's not inherent in their culture and DNA. And so they really need expertise in order to select the right partner and stack of partners in order to get results out of their technology strategy. And one important component, one question I always ask up front, and one question I always advise people to ask up front is whatever technology they're buying, how does it talk to your POS? And POS is a piece of technology. There's a lot of POS companies out there that have been in business a very long time, and some people's POS in their store may be older versions of POS, and so you've got to get really clear on how a certain piece of technology interacts with your POS, because if it takes your POS down, or the time to resolution when issues do occur, if they affect the operation of your POS, then when the cash register is not ringing, you're not collecting cash, and that is very impactful to a business. And the operators that you're asking to operate these technologies in restaurant environments, they get frustrated very quickly if they're tripped up by issues with the POS. And so the first thing that I look at, when I'm talking with other brands, or talking with my colleagues, is understand what their POS environment looks like. Is it a legacy system? Is it a modern system? Is it out of date? Is it a good foundation to build consumer-facing technology on top of? And you've got to get that right first. Number one, most important question there is it secure? You've got to get the cybersecurity right on your POS before you put customer-facing technology on top of it. Second thing, once you get your POS environment, a good understanding of your POS environment and how you collect cash, and then how these new technologies are gonna stack up on top of that POS, then you've got to understand, what does an integration mean between your technology and your POS, this new customer-facing technology and your POS, and is there actually a stack of technologies that you need to put in place to ensure stability and cybersecurity? And so, kind of one general approach that I try to take with any customer-facing technology is to make sure that the customer-facing part of it is abstracted from the POS. So if the customer-facing technology goes down, then it doesn't impact my in-store, my POS in-store. The cash register can keep ringing. They can keep running credit cards. They can keep collecting cash, and they can keep ringing in new orders. That's critical functionality. And if the customer-facing technology goes down and it impacts the in-store operations, it's extremely disruptive, and the operator loses trust with the customer-facing technology. They start rejecting the coupons or the orders or whatever is coming through there, and they try to just shove it to the back of the house and keep it out of sight and keep it from being successful. So building that trust with the operator that even if there's issues, number one, we're tracking time to resolution and we're resolving those issues quickly, and we're being highly responsive to those issues. Number two, they're not going to mess up your in-store operations, and you're going to be able to find a workaround even when one of these technologies goes wrong. And so that's a lot of stuff to hang in the balance. I think the the common denominator there is building great partnerships with your technology partners. Technologies are multi-year initiatives, and like I said earlier, they're hard and expensive and sometimes impossible to unwind depending on how much you've stacked on top of them and the scale of your operation. So, understanding who your partners are, what they believe to be true about technology and how it serves the customer, you've got to check that against what you know about your customer and how you want to drive, how a brand wants to drive their business and develop their customer base, and determine if those 2 points of views mesh or if there's misalignment between those points of view. Not everybody's going to have the exact same point of view, but a good partner is going to be able to flex and move and challenge brands in the right way in order to help them stay current with customers' trends, and a brand's responsibility is to partner with that technology partner and help them understand, what is convenience, what is meaningful to my guest in these different day parts, in these different product groups, and the brands take a hard stand for the consumer so that the technology provider and the consumer can work together in order to build a good experience for the guest. And if you don't have that great relationship, that partnership, that willingness to work together and give and take together, it's going to be very challenging to get the yield on the technology investments that's required. Anand, what would you add to that?
Yeah, sure, Jason. I mean, you certainly nailed it. 2 key points that you brought out. One is everything is centered around POS. Secondly, and more importantly, QSRs are not tech-savvy companies, so it's very important to partner with the right technology solutions provider who not only brings in hardware, software capabilities, but also be able to understand the location importance, understand where the issues are, and able to work in line with SLAs. So, I would want to share some of the interesting insights that, some of the QSRs are taking up recently as one of their top IT projects, at least, as you rightly said, again, most of these IT projects are long duration. They stack up anywhere between a few months to more than a year, I would say. And so some of them are, one is to manage, control, and monitor restaurant endpoints. And what we are seeing, and one of the implementations that we are doing, is to provide standardized and remove all redundant all-in-one hardware, which will serve as a boot server for all the endpoints. That's one thing. Secondly, minimize endpoint outages. So focus on diskless infrastructure, lower IT hardware costs, which is, focusing on low-cost thin clients, and simplify and standardize restaurant IT processes. This is a common thread that we are seeing in a number of franchisees who are managing brands as well as, single brand as well as multi-brands. They want to kind of move towards more of a virtualized environment rather than having physical boxes in a given store. I recently came across this problem where one of the customers said, I have a lot of stores inside an airport, and if there's an outage, how would you solve it? So, I said, we have all the technology, acumen and so on. But, entering an airport requires a different amount of credentials, let alone technology skills. So it's very important that, people move away from traditional hard-bound boxes to move towards more of a software-oriented architecture, which gives them leverage, which, reduces dependencies on individuals within a store. And such projects need to have a very clear crawl, walk, run, fly kind of a program. So initially start off with low-risk items, define the success criteria, run stability tests, kind of sharpen your knives around cost savings, lay the foundation to move towards a managed service. And then start with the platform expansion, build in resiliency enhancements, lay the foundation for automation, and then platform offering, where you get into more of, monitoring and alerting, and then do a large-scale rollout. So it's more of a crawl, walk, run, fly kind of a program where you have to kind of handhold the brands together as you roll out massive IT transformation projects. Over to you, Brad.
Thank you. Thank you, Jason and Anand. So we're moving on to another question. And I'd just like to remind our audience again, if you have any questions during the presentations, to please submit them for live Q&A following the session. So our next topic is, how can automation and machine learning really improve back-of-house operations? Sachin, do you mind taking this question first, and then Anand also giving your perspective?
Sure. Thank you, Brad. So Jason, Anand, and Joseph all mentioned some great points on how technology is being implemented to kind of focus around the customer and provide a better experience all in all. One thing that we are seeing on the back of house side of things is that these technologies have an impact on the kitchen and back of house side, where the back of house is this common denominator which is kind of creating your end product. So it is imperative that while other aspects of the QSR kind of move ahead in technology, invest in automation and machine learning even in the back of house side of things, and bring in efficiencies, order accuracy, and reducing order time. And keep in mind that this is kind of elevating the already pre-existing conditions of increased labor costs and other external factors. Some things that we are seeing, some of the partner companies that we're working with implement across food prep, storage, and employee management. For example, some brands are building autonomous or investing in autonomous robots that are using artificial intelligence, machine learning to kind of take care of repetitive tasks and automate them, such as flipping burgers. You're having automated ovens now operate through the night so that employees do not need to come in at 7 in the morning and start the process of baking. We're having smart refrigerators, use sensors, feedback control systems, and data analytics to automate the management of food quality. On the labor and employee side of things, you're having software and automation technology that is helping with training, scheduling, and shift tracking that is easing the burden on the store and restaurant managers and helps employees schedule breaks, trade shifts, and so on and so forth. All in all, what we are seeing on the back of house side of things is that automation is helping eliminate or replace repetitive tasks so that the employees and labor can now start focusing on that key requirement, which is elevation of the customer experience. Anand, anything that you would like to add to this?
No, Sachin, you covered most of the points. I feel the only one area where, it's very important to tie in back of the house operations with the customer inflow, be it within the premise or in a drive-through. It's very important to understand where they're coming from. And it's, today you have a number of ways by which you can capture that information, be it through cameras, which are already there, or be it sensors. So it's imperative to understand the customer behavior, the pattern, and then tie it back to the back of the house operations to ensure reduce wastage, one, and improve the touch point with the customer.
All right. Thank you, Sachin and Anand. Sorry. So our next question is, what role do AI and advanced analytics play in improving the drive-through experience? Joseph and Jason, do you mind giving us some perspective on this?
Yeah, this is Joseph. Thanks again for the question. I think Anand and Sachin both covered some really good points. They were talking about back of the house in terms of AI and the way that artificial intelligence can play a role, all the sensors that are used out here in the marketplace today to look at food temperatures and IoT integration. Artificial intelligence is just a natural extension, and I love the reference to crawl, walk, run, fly. I think AI puts us in the situation where a lot of the leading QSRs are now flying or even going supersonic. There's a huge labor shortage out there in the market today. So, I'll integrate into, or I'll touch base on the drive-through component of the experience, but let me expand a little bit on how AI is going to be basically capturing a lot more data, analyzing that data, and those are sensors that are in drawers, in packaging areas. They're video analytics sensors that can count the number of people in certain zones of the restaurant. They could even pick up data and information about a little area needs to be cleaned, and then can integrate in alerting systems. Those alerting systems can be integrated into the back of the house or the front of the house. To alert employees that they need to go get some things done. They need to pick up some things. They need to go greet a customer. Maybe they need to take a mobile order out to a guest. And so I think the drive-through experience, I think you're going to see a significant change. You're beginning to see it already. Voice automated integrated applications. I mean, we could mention several brands. One could be Alexa, another one could be Google, could be IBM, Watson, using voice analytics and voice recognition capabilities to enhance the drive-through experience. That could go into a situation where you even have an Alexa built in to that ordering experience with better microphones, better displays. I think digital out of home displays and digital signage can play a huge role into making sure that an AI engine applied to that, analyzing the data, looking at all the advanced analytics. You can turn dumb digital signage or dumb drive-throughs or static drive-throughs into dynamic, intelligent drive-throughs, as well as potentially kiosks inside the quick service restaurant. So I think it's really more than just the drive-through experience, but it could be inside the store as well, to provide just like Jason had mentioned early on in the webinar, the best customer experience. And knowing your customer is critical. Knowing where your franchises are, knowing where those locations are, knowing which markets to apply some of the advanced analytics to first is going to be a key point of this strategy, because as you go from, and you've already finished your crawl walk strategy, most of you are running already, and you're hitting the flight path, this is how you're going to be able to go supersonic. Potentially reduce the risk of not being able to fill some of these positions because there's a huge labor shortage in the market, and then be able to take advantage of the predictions that, say, Gartner is saying by 2020 you're going to have a huge number of quick service restaurants with some sort of AI interaction, meaning 85% of customers will have some sort of AI interaction by 2020. Now, that being said, it's not going to be everything, but you need to be smart about the way that you implement those and trust your partner and select the right partner. Jason, what would you say you would add to what you're seeing in the industry, and how both the drive-through experience is being addressed and how AI might play a role?
Yeah, so it's right in line with your last comment about what do you implement first. And so the way that I look at this is the Samsungs of the world are going to be the professionals in AI and advanced analytics. Checkers and Rally's and other brands are not going to have as much experience, as much depth, as much insight and leading edge thinking as the Samsungs of the world. And so I need to rely on those partners to bring those solutions to the table. The way that I think about using those solutions and partnering with folks like Samsung is I have a ton of data about my brand, and some of it is well organized, some of it is not well organized, some of it is structured, some of it is not structured. Some of it may live in really weird places where it's difficult to pull it out, but it's all meaningful and it all paints a picture of, again, who my customer is and what do they care about. So I want to use AI and advanced analytics along with a very capable partner that understands my business in order to understand what capabilities should I be implementing next in order to make the biggest impact that creates convenience and enhances the user experience. And as Joseph listed off, there's a ton of things that you can do, a lot of capabilities that are market ready that you can put into your brand and make available right away. But the question that the brand has to answer is, are they meaningful to my guest? And to answer that question, you got to know who your guest is and know what gaps exist or what opportunities are there in order to create more convenience and more an enhanced customer experience, and how are those going to help the customer form a better relationship with the brand so that you get more loyal behavior out of that customer. And the loyalty will bring you your higher check and your increased visits. But it all comes down to knowing that guest, continuously learning about the guest and the changes in their preference so that you're always in lockstep with what they want. And then taking this massive amount of data and making it meaningful and usable and also very current to the decisions that a brand has to make in terms of what technology investment are they going to make that's going to impact the customer experience for the next several years, and how does that roll out, and how does that get reported on and show impacts to the P&L.
All right. Thank you, Joseph and Jason. With that, we'd like to move into a little Q&A session. So our first question in today is, how can restaurants experiencing margin pressures invest in technology to upgrade their customer experiences?
Hey, Brad, thank you. Joseph here again. I think I would direct this question probably to Jason first, talking about margin pressures that he might be experiencing, or have experienced over the past few years, and then hand it over to maybe Sachin to make a couple of comments.
Yeah, the way I think about this question is the need of technology and how it solves a customer problem. If I have a customer that's coming in and paying cash, there's not a lot of technology that's needed in order to support that transaction. Most brands are aware of the average ticket size that are associated with cash visitors, and for most brands, a cash transaction is their lowest average ticket time. It also requires the lowest amount of technology, so there's not a lot of cost against it. Credit card is the next channel of transaction type. For most brands, again, a credit card transaction carries a higher average ticket value, and you need a little bit more technology in order to manage the security and the execution of those credit card transactions, but the increased check size is worth the extra technology investment. And then I look at digital as just another tender type. At least that's how I think about it in terms of the amount of investment. Most brands see a higher ticket value with digital transactions than they do with credit card or cash, and so that helps to inform the right amount of investment that's available to execute those transactions. Also, the size of that channel helps them right size the investment so that they're not buying they're not buying a giant piece of technology that's too heavy for the amount of volume that they have going through that channel, and they mature that technology stack over time.
Sachin, if you have anything to add, I think you could. Yep.
Yeah. So all I would thanks, Jason. So all I would like to add is that on the margin side of things, probably one of the largest cost items brands face is the labor cost. And as we all know, we are seeing a trend of increase in minimum wage as well as high sort of churn rates of staff in the industry. It becomes important for brands to invest in technology to manage that cost item better. So anything that can be done to kind of reduce training costs, move repetitive tasks to machines so that the employees are elevated to do functions that are more customer experience centric, that will help ease some of the cost burdens and thereby improve the margins.
Great, thank you. So our next question is, what type of customer data is available to better understanding the on-site customer experience or help with staffing decisions?
Brad, this is Joseph. I'll take first stab at this, and I'd like to hand it over to Anand to see if he's got anything to add. I'm sure he does, being focused on analytics and big data. So there's a ton of data that's already available. You get your credit card processing data, transaction data, point of sale data. There are systems now that are becoming even more and more intelligent on the back office side. You've got intelligent refrigerators, you've got intelligent cooking machines, and there's data constantly being collected by IoT sensors that are a part of these machines. The real question is, what are you doing to capture that data? Do you have a good master data management plan from a back office standpoint? And is that data clean? If it is clean data and you can capture it all, there are incredibly powerful tools that many of the QSR companies have invested in and are continuing to invest in, and now applying artificial intelligence to, and even deep learning algorithms. These types of technologies can be easily applied to the data strategy that you have. That data can come from video cameras, video analytics, touch screens, sensors, a myriad of things that are already deployed in most of the quick service restaurant industry deployments. And now it's just a matter of unlocking the data that's there and capturing new metrics, implementing new processes, automated alerts, automated tasks, a list of tasks that can be integrated in. This can help with our immense labor shortage that we have in the quick service restaurant and the heavy turnover that Sachin just referenced as well. And with that, I'll probably hand it over to Anand and let him make a few comments as well. Anand, what do you have to add?
Yeah, sure, Joseph. I feel you kind of summarized most of the data elements that a QSR would capture from a customer data standpoint. I would just like to add a couple of more things, more data elements that can be leveraged. The data exists in some shape or form. It's more about harnessing that data and curating that data that can be used for business solutions. So one of them that comes, which we are implementing, is through the existing cameras that are there in the drive-thru. Even if I know the number of vehicles that are there in the queue, based on that, I can optimize what can be, pre-cooked, the number of ovens that need to be restarted, reheated, etc., based on the queue length that you can analyze. That's one. Secondly, even from the traffic patterns of people walking in within the store, within the dining area, the day of the week, etc., you can then optimize the content and the menu within a store so that you can give the relevant promotions to the customers. So that's the other area. So I'm just taking the data at a slightly aggregated level, and that can be used to harness a number of decision points that can enable the top line or improve the check size, as Jason was saying, and more importantly, have a touch point with the customer. Lastly, I would also like to emphasize that though the segment of customers using mobile phones, etc., is tiny, but you get a wealth of information around from where are they ordering. So you can get a lot of geo-specific data, and that can be used by both corporates and franchisees to look at where should they open their stores next. So it's more from a planning perspective to look at that kind of data to help plan out new stores and look at new menus to serve the neighborhood.
All right, thank you. Our next question is directed directly to Jason. It asks, what are your thoughts on using digital out-of-home advertising along with in-store digital signage to create cohesive digital display messaging?
Well, I think the idea there is that the customer has a consistent experience of the brand along all digital touch points, and I think to everyone who's spoken today, there's a big focus on data. In order to deliver that consistent customer experience, you have to be gaining insights that have a global impact on every channel that you're advertising on. And so I have seen with various marketing campaigns that a consistent customer experience across all channels, whether it's out of home or social media or display advertising or pre-roll on YouTube, if the message is consistent and the creative is consistent across all those different asset types and channels, then the message gets through to the customer and it influences purchase behavior and ultimately grows sales. And so customers use out-of-home signage one way. They use digital signage at your restaurant another way. Both of those customer touch points meet a different need for the customer at a different time. So you still have to meet the need on the appropriate channel, but if they see a piece of advertising, they have a half a second to look at that out-of-home advertising. If they show up to the drive-through and the image is there that they saw on the out-of-home sign, then it's going to trigger that memory and remember what it was that drove them into the restaurant and probably order that item. So consistency is key. That comes with data-driven insights and understand what should you put on every single channel, and then what's converting, what creative converts. It all comes down to knowing that customer and learning more about them in real time. So very, very important stuff. Difficult to execute. You need the right technology partners in order to execute it and make it a continuous test and learn process for how you run your business.
Thank you, Jason. So we have one more question in, and that is, how does newer technology allow you to expand your target market?
Yeah, this is Joseph again. I think newer technology allows any customer to expand their target market when they utilize the data the right way, when they apply it to true customer needs. As long as you know who your target customer is or who your customers are, I'll allow, or I would say, I would say that Jason should probably make a comment because he's actually dealing with his customers. But in the QS, in the quick service restaurant market, but in our markets in technology, it's critical that we listen to our customers. It's allowing us to expand our market and leverage digital technology, mobile technology, even video analytics today. It's become commonplace and mainstream. It's easy to implement, and it's easy to capture that data and leverage it and add it to essentially what you already know, or even test new concepts within the quick service restaurant industry. Any last comments, Jason, before we close things out today?
Yeah, quick thing. I would just encourage folks to understand the technology investment that you are making. Build a business case with your technology partner in a very transparent way so that they understand the business objective that you're trying to achieve, and you understand the technology that you're buying. If you can both shake hands on this is the business objective and this is the right technology in order to get us there, then you're both held accountable to that outcome. And you can work together to give your technology partner good information about what's happening, how is this rolling out, it's overperforming, it's underperforming, it's on track, and that will help guide your technology partner in terms of the support and additional investment that they need to make into the technology in order to deliver the customer experience that's going to create the sales outcome. So all of that, that is a relationship, and I would answer that question in saying just be very aware of the technology investments that you're making. Make a business case with your technology partner so that you can both invest the right amount of effort to get the yield that you need in order to pay for it and deliver a great customer experience.
So I'll add one quick thing to Jason's comment there, and specifically if Randy, you were looking for some of the specific newer technology, definitely digital signage and digital out of home is driving an ability to capture more customers and create a cohesive message. That's essentially attracting new target markets depending on where you're deciding to place that advertising. And then you can also add on top of that all of the out-of-home services, the mobile ordering and the mobile pickup integrated solutions. You're reaching newer customers, different customers, millennials, those who are more busy. That's another great way to specifically use some of the technologies that are inherent in what you're seeing in the trends right now. Yeah, you can add the video analytics. Yes, you can add artificial intelligence, voice recognition systems, or voice AI systems. But those are going to help you improve the drive-through experience and then capture a greater customer return and higher check values as well. So it's a kind of an open-ended answer to your question, Randy. But hopefully that helps.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us. I'd like to thank all our presenters. And I want to remind everyone that you will be getting a recording of this webinar sent to your email. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope you have a great day.